help startups in the cybersecurity space. Um, so whenever you're having those conversations with them in the startup space, what are their big concerns, or do they even have a big concern? I know from my perspective, so we run a cybersecurity shop down here in Ohio, and we do some active uh, monitoring of networks and things of that nature through our SOC. And so one of the biggest challenges that we always have is talking when we're talking to business leaders that are outside of regulated industries. Getting them to understand the risk has always been a challenge. I was just curious if you see the same challenge in your space as well.
Yeah, that's a good question, AJ. More and more, what we're seeing is sort of a change in narrative, and a narrative that we've tried to change as well. Because the just focusing overtly on the threats, overtly on the risks, it in regulated spaces, like you mentioned there, that lands that narrative, but it somewhat misses the boat with non-regulated organizations. And what we've seen and where we've tried to change the narrative is more so along the lines of vendor risk management and supply chain risk management. And what we're seeing as well is, let's say you are a startup company, or you're a company that sells a widget. Let's say you're company A and your competitor company B, you both sell the same widget. If you're trying to sell that widget or platform to big company X, more and more we're seeing big company X taking third-party risk management or vendor risk management more seriously. So they're going to be going more often than not with vendors that are able to quickly demonstrate their cybersecurity capabilities. So now that has more of a business narrative to it, more so than a risk narrative to it. So we're seeing that, like I said, in spaces, especially with B2B organizations, where they are at a risk of losing out on these contracts for clients or customers. And we're seeing it and weaving that narrative around, you're losing business opportunities by not taking it seriously or not ingraining it in your company's DNA. So that's an interesting trend that, like I said, I think we've seen emerge over the past, I want to say 18 to 24 months. And we're trying to have more of a focus on that, because that resonates more with, like I said, especially B2B organizations in non-regulated spaces.
Are you finding that conversation surprising to some of those startups that are so focused in on whatever their product or widget or whatever it is that they may be doing? Is that kind of catching them off guard, being that may not have been a talking point in the past?
That's a good question, John. I'd say where they're caught off guard is when one of their customers or clients throws up those security barriers and say, hey, you know what? We love your product, or we love your platform or widget, but before this goes any further, we need to do our vendor risk management assessment on you. And I kid you not, we have had organizations reach out to us saying, we're about to land the biggest contract in our organization's history, but we're not going to get it because our security sucks. Can you help us build it in a week and a half? Because that's when the
hold my beer
assessment. Right? Yeah. And as good as I like to think I am, at least in my own mind, we're not miracle workers, And as both of you know, I mean, security is an ongoing journey. It's not just a